Welcome one, welcome all to the Blogging the Boys Roundtable. I am Brandon Loree. I will be your host for tonight's events, and RJ has taken me out of the darkness retreat. I was in there for a long time. I think the last time I was here was back, before free agency started. So it's been a minute, but I'm joined by my usual suspects. I'll start, because we have a loaded show. We have to get to things very quickly, but I will start with Brandon C. You were the first one that joined sort of this roundtable for tonight, signed up for it. Was it because you saw my name was attached to the ledger, or it's just something you just wanted to pop on and give your 2 cents?
A little bit of both. You know how that goes. I enjoy talking to my fellow B, so I'm always good with that. And of course, like especially with the draft around the corner, I was looking forward to this. As soon as I heard that we were going to do some draft talk tonight, I'm always on board for that. So it's a double whammy for me.
I love it. Chris Halling, you are here as well. And unfortunately, as of right now, you do not have the blue check mark on Twitter, but you will always be verified to me in my heart. Are you excited to talk about the NFL draft tonight?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I am excited to talk about the NFL draft. The NFL draft is probably my favorite sporting event, honestly, like outside of like March Madness, maybe. I love the draft. It's so exciting, so fun to see, especially if you really like college football, like I do. I watch college football every Saturday. So it's just awesome to see those players, see where they go, see, if we get them or if they go to an NFC rival. So yeah, no, I'm always excited about some draft talk.
And then last but certainly not least, we have David Howman, who actually, if anybody was looking at the BTB YouTube page on Sunday, you saw that David and I did a mock draft simulation. As you can see, I'm wearing sort of the similar outfit. He's in the war room once again with Jerry Jones, sort of like a subliminal messaging to think, oh, I've seen that outfit before. Let me go track and see where I could find that again. And then this way we get more clicks, more likes. Howman, do you feel like you have the upper hand on everybody tonight since you know what's going to be happening?
Well, if watching the draft has taught me anything, it's that you never have the upper hand. You never know what kind of curveballs are going to be thrown at you. So I'm going in with a level head, just ready for the opportunity.
I love it. I love it. And of course, we cannot forget our audience that is tuning in right now. We appreciate you guys. We are so happy that you're here to listen to what we have to say. And as always, if you want to check out everything that we talked about tonight, you could always catch the recap afterwards on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast services, either Spotify, iTunes, wherever you can get your podcast. It'll be on afterwards and tomorrow. So for the sake of time, we are going to get right into tonight's game. And it's not necessarily a game. We're doing a live BTB mock draft. That's right. It is about 2 weeks from the NFL draft, and we're going to do something that we haven't done as of yet. And I got my scouts here along with the audience. You guys are going to be playing along as well in some way. And pretty much I'm going to be Jerry Jones, the GM of the Dallas Cowboys, and I need my scouts to convince me where we need to go in this draft right now. So with that being said, to be a little different from the mock draft that Howman and I did on Sunday, I have an itch, guys. I have an itch to trade, and it's either going to be trading up for a player or trading back. So we can talk a little bit about it right now, but I'll start with Brandon C. Do you have an indication of where you want to go, either trade up or trade back?
Oh, at this stage of the game, I am glad. I'm glad to trade back at this point, and I like to see where the chips fall, and I'd like to see who what could come. Get some more assets because if you can get a couple second round, some second round picks, some third round picks, there's it's more the merrier, and it gives us a shot to do really well in this draft. The issue that I know a lot of people are going to have is that second round spot. The Cowboys have had that's like their kryptonite. I do feel like there's a lot of good second and third round talent. So I feel like if you can get somebody to we trade back into the early second round potentially for somebody who's looking to get a fifth year option on a player. I think that's a really good idea. And I think just stockpile as many assets as possible. I think is a high end assets as possible. I think is a good idea. I don't think this is the kind of draft based on our team needs that I don't think it's worth it because a guy like Joey Porter, I feel like is going to go a lot earlier than what the Cowboys can get up to, and I just don't want to give up way too much for that. I mean, if he falls, that's a different thing, but at this point, I think it's okay to trade back.
Chris, I know for you personally, we were talking in the pre-show of you had an indication of where you want to go. Has that changed since we started this discussion? You can see our other scouts in the audience are in favor of one option. Are you kind of wavering in what we were talking about before? You might be muted, potentially.
I was
Already
muted.
off to a rough start.
I'm sorry. I know. Well, I was gonna say it all depends on how the draft like plans out. You know what I mean? How it pans out. Because I mean, you don't, in my opinion, I don't want to just trade up and then that guy go way earlier than that. You know, like I think you got to trade up when you know your guy's there and when you want him and where you want him. So I'm pro trading up for somebody who's been talked about a lot in Dallas. That's all I'm gonna say. He's got that Texas, connection, and it's kind of controversial, but that's that, or maybe a big, great defensive tackle, or a great, big, maybe even a great, impactful wide receiver. I'm okay with trading up for. But if it's down to tight end, I'd rather just trade back. I don't want to spend the first round pick on a tight end, and there's other positions too. So I think it really just depends on who's available and what we can do when we're on the board.
Howman, be the deciding factor. We have one for trade back, one for trade up. What do you think?
Well, I first of all, I applaud Chris for sticking to his guns. I'm pretty sure he was talking about Roschon Johnson being the guy he wants to go up and get. I'm pretty sure I read that right. Personally, I am not a fan of trading up in almost any case, especially when you're not trading up for a position as valuable as quarterback. The Cowboys do not need to trade up for a quarterback. They've got a pretty darn good one in Dak Prescott. So I'd be open to seeing what's still available there at pick 26, but potentially keeping open the option of trading down. But I don't want to go up.
All right, so it's settled. We're going to be trading back if the option presents itself. So with that being said, we have our mock draft simulator already queued up for the audience at home as well. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through turbo mode because, again, we have no time to waste right now. So we're going to start the draft, of course, with the Carolina Panthers on the clock, and we're moving. So as of right now, we have a couple guys who are on the board. They're actually, as of right now, there are no trades. Nobody's looking to trade and dance with us as a trade partner. So with that being said, I will turn to Howman, you first, because I know there's the name that's sort of glaring at the top right now is Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah. It's somebody that you have talked about, you are in favor for, and you have been sort of pro tight end in the first round. What do you think about him?
I think Dalton Kincaid is the second best pass catcher in this draft after Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's such a fluid player. He's got great hands. He's a great route runner. And if you were to get a guy like Dalton Kincaid, you're essentially getting a big slot receiver. You can't think of it as we're getting a tight end. We're getting someone who's going to positively impact the passing game in a major way. So I'm a big fan. I think there's a reason that he's at the top of Pro Football Focus's board. He's the first name you see there on top guys available. I think it makes sense.
Brandon C. Bobby Ellis says that you have the OU tackle. Of course, that is Anton Harrison, who is on the board as well. Is that somebody that you're kind of looking at, or you think that you just want to go in a different direction?
I'm totally going against the grain. I definitely don't want to tackle at this point. That's just my take on it. I'm happy with obviously Tyler Smith's going to be our left tackle for the future. Terrence Steele is still pretty young. I think we're okay there. And then obviously Tyron Smith. I think we can wait. I think we can wait on tackle a little bit. I really like at this point. I like Will McDonald, the edge rusher out of Iowa State. I think he's a very talented player, and I think the more the merrier. At this point, he's on the board from what I can see here. He's my best player available right now, and I think at this point you gotta go with the BPA in my opinion, and you can never have enough edge rushers. He's a heck of a talent. He was a great player at Iowa State. You can never go wrong with a quality edge player right now.
We have Eduardo. Thank you for the super chat. He says, please make a mock with what the Cowboys would do, not certain persons of what we would like. Basically just says that those exercises aren't worth talking about. And I think that when it comes to what we're going to be talking about tonight, it's going to be a mix. We do want to give a perspective of what the Cowboys would do, but I think that, again, a lot of us have done the research on a few of these players as well. So we definitely do keep the Cowboys priorities in mind. And Will McDonald is somebody that, like Brandon was talking about, it's a good player, good quality player, and somebody that the Cowboys, specifically Dan Quinn, visited with. Chris, any sort of position that you want to take a look at before we decide where we want to go for pick one?
Well, what I would do right now is I see a wide receiver on the board that looks really intriguing to me. I love Zay Flowers as a prospect. He runs so angry after catching the football, kind of runs like Des Bryant does whenever he gets the football. He's just looking to break every tackle. He's looking to get in that end zone. I think there's two talented wide receivers right now on the board with him and Jordan Addison. So, I'm kind of looking like, could we look to trade back? Because at pick 27, I don't think that the Bills would go wide receiver. Maybe, possibly, the Bengals probably wouldn't go wide receiver. So then you're looking at that Saints position. I would try and move down to number 29, maybe move back a few spots, see if they're interested in moving up, and then maybe go with your wide receiver if either of those two guys fell.
So we do know that the Cowboys need help at the wide receiver position as well as the defense. Kind of taking a look at some other positions that might be available. I think, maybe one specifically might be interior offensive line. Of course, you still have Osiris Torrance and Steve Avila. That's how you pronounce his name, not Avila. So do any of those guys pique your interest, Howman, or you just want to go, let's make a decision on either Zay Flowers or Will McDonald?
I think probably 26th overall pick is a little too rich for either Torrance or Avila. I think they're both good players, but for me, if I'm looking at really trying to continue building this offense, it starts with giving Dak some more weapons. So you want to get someone for him to throw to first and foremost.
All right. So are we leaning, Brandon, towards Zay Flowers? Are we going with the pick for the first round?
Honestly, if I'm going to go between Flowers and Addison, I think I would go Jordan Addison here.
Man, you're not making this easy. Chris, make the ultimate decision. You want Zay Flowers or Addison?
I would want Zay Flowers.
All right, I agree. We're going to go with Zay Flowers as the newest Dallas Cowboy at the 26th pick. We are moving, and we have addressed the wide receiver position. Chris, any sort of second-round pick, maybe interior offensive lineman, that's where I'm thinking, as maybe seeing if any of those guards are available. So let's see what we got here with interior offensive linemen. We have Chandler Zavala, Luke Whippler, Joe Tipman. The two guys that we wanted are off the board. Cody Mauch just went to 56 at the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, unfortunately, even Matt Bergeron, I know you being a Syracuse guy, Brandon, he's off the board to the New York Giants. I feel like they're going to be a pain all through this draft cycle, unfortunately. So, we have Daryl saying interior offensive line or defensive tackle. So, with those guys in mind, let's go to defensive tackle, and we'll see what we have here. So, we have Kobe Turner. We have Sika Aika out of Baylor. He's a very good big boy at defensive tackle. Kobe Turner, I found out today, Howman, that he is a vocalist as well. He's a talented singer and pianist. So he's multifaceted. So let's see. I'll start, Brandon. Any sort of kind of players stick out a little bit or any sort of position? We have Sam Laporta, the tight end. Tyreek Stevenson still on the board. Julius Brent, Garrett Williams.
Oh man, you're twisting my arm on here because you know how much I love Garrett Williams from Syracuse. I mean, he's a Syracuse guy. It's a tough one, but as you can see tonight on the camera, I'm wearing Baylor Bears. I mean, if Siaki Ika is there, you got to take him. I feel like I think that's a really big need right here. I think filling up that. I mean, he's a monster. He's 6'3", 335 pounds. He's the perfect interior lineman. I would love to have him inside for the defense to help those edge rushes a little bit because it's going to, the run defense is something that I still think, needs some tweaking. And I think this would be the right guy. But if you guys aren't on board with that, my other option obviously is Garrett Williams because he is a cornerback and I know Garrett Williams very well watching his games and he's a heck of a talent. I think he's going to be a good player in the league. So to me, it's splitting hairs. But if I had to lean one way or the other, I'm going with the big man Ika.
I do think Howman, I'll get to you next, Chris, but for me, cornerback is something that we talked about on our mock draft as well as a position of need. Potentially, if Trayvon Diggs leaves next offseason, if the Cowboys can't get a deal done with him and they don't sign him to a long-term deal if they apply the franchise tag. Garrett Williams is somebody, but again, we do have Aika here. Stevenson. Mauch actually went to pick 56 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, so 2 picks beforehand. So unfortunately, who would be our top guard is unavailable right now. So Howman, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think you flashed up one of the comments earlier too, is when we're trying to kind of balance between what the Cowboys, necessarily would do. I really like Siaki Ika out of Baylor. He's just a massive nose tackle type that really, aside from Jonathan Hankins, the Cowboys haven't had much of lately. But you also see kind of in their recent history, they don't really value the defensive tackle spot, especially when it's just someone who's going to play nose tackle, who's going to play one technique. So as much as I personally would say, like, let's just sprint up to the podium and put it in for Ika, I question how realistic that would be if we're trying to, kind of mix it in with what the Cowboys would do. So I think at this point, probably looking at, some of the guys at corner or maybe even some of the options at edge rusher might be a way to go. And then I see Sam Laporta. I'm still a tight end fan. I think Sam Laporta is really great. I think he'd be great value at 58 as well. But I sense that I'm probably alone on that island.
Chris, what did you want to say earlier?
Yeah, so a few things that I found interesting in this. I think this shows that picking at 58, you're probably not going to get that elite guard that you want. So maybe trading down in the first round, if guard is the way you want to go, I would trade down because I don't think either Osiris or the TCU guard would fall to us. But one thing I did want to say about Garrett Williams, it feels like a bias pick in my mind too for me to want him, Brandon, because I actually went to middle school and high school with him and played football and basketball with him throughout his entire sixth grade through high school. He's a great guy. He's an awesome guy. But I would go with exactly. He's, he has a great character. I think he could fall another round though with his injury. I think second round might be a little rich for him. So I would go with the Baylor defensive tackle personally. I think that provides a big body in the middle and it gives the Cowboys that trench depth that we've been talking about this whole time. So I would go with Siaki right now and I would stuff that middle.
All right, that's who we're picking. We're picking the defensive tackle out of Baylor. Good consensus. I think it addresses a need as well. The Cowboys only signed Jonathan Hankins to a 1-year deal. So it's unfortunately, he might not be here next year. You don't know what's going to happen with Neville Gallimore. You need somebody that's a big body, run stuffer to especially help out the linebackers. And I think he fills that void perfectly. So we have a few other players on the board right now. Garrett Williams is still there.
That's what I just said.
You have Chandler Zavala, the guard out of NC State. I know there's another guy, Antonio Mafi, who the Cowboys met with as well, who might still be available. I could always check that out. But Brandon C., I will start with you. Any sort of position of need that kind of piques your interest right now? We have the big defensive tackle. We have the wide receiver.
Run to the podium and just get me Garrett Williams right now. Chris stole my thunder on that. I was just gonna say he fell in this mock to the third round. I run right off because I wouldn't have had a problem taking him in late round too. To be honest with you, I know he has the injury. He's just this uber talented guy. He just knows how to make plays. He's going to be an even better NFL player than he was.
He plays very physical.
Yeah, he's a heck of a cornerback. He has all the tools to me and I would just you got to go Garrett Williams here. I mean, I think the value here is perfect, and he's the kind of guy, even with a little bit of the injury stuff, he doesn't need to play right away. There's enough guys right now with Stephon Gilmore in the mix that you don't need to put him in at right off the gate. Give him enough time to be ready, and I think this is a heck of a pick here. I'm on the Garrett Williams train. Let's do it.
Now, Kevin does bring up a good point. We do have a trade. The Jets are seemingly wanting to come up, so they do have pick 112, 143. We're at 90, so that would be a pretty big drop considering where we're at right now. And I don't know if Garrett Williams is going to fall that far. Howman, is Williams the pick here, or do you want to go in a different direction of what you're feeling? I have sort of my personal opinion on it, but I'll let you attack it first as my scout.
Well, as much as I hate to go against Brandon and his Syracuse guys, I think at this point I probably would prefer going with Chandler Zavala. I think he's someone that is at least going to be a potential player to come in and play right away at left guard. If he isn't ready to go from week one, then the Cowboys are still in a good spot because you can put Tyler Smith there. You signed Chuma at a guy in free agency, and he can play. But I really want to make sure that they have all their possible options at left guard. Whereas if you're spending a pick on a corner, you're saying he's probably not going to be playing this year with Stephon Gilmore, even regardless of the injury. So that would be my preference.
So Antonio Mafi is still on the board, and that specific reason, honestly, for me, that's why I'm going to go with Garrett Williams as the pick here, the cornerback out of Syracuse. I know it's something that Howman, it's not something that you want, but I do think that it addresses a need for the Cowboys. Again, he might not be getting snaps right away, but you need somebody to kind of train and groom. And Stephon Gilmore might not even be here next season if he just wants to move on after the 1 year. And I think if you can train a young cornerback with his tutelage and his experience, I think that creates a lot of value. So with that being said, let's take a look at interior offensive linemen. We still have Juice Scruggs, the center guard out of Penn State. That's somebody that the Cowboys have taken a look at. Tonio Mafi is still there. Anthony Bradford. We still have, let's see, Jarrett Patterson, the guard out of Notre Dame. Interior offensive lineman, not really a strong suit right now. But again, Tony Mafi is somebody that we had talked about on our episode on Sunday. It's a big, big body at that guard position and can solidify the Cowboys offensive line. And you do also have Adoga, who was signed in free agency. And you also have Josh Ball, who might be getting reps at guard for whatever that's worth. So let's start with Chris. Chris, what do you think? Interior offensive lineman, sort of what we need right now?
Well, see, what I was wanting to say was that I really like the idea of getting Garrett in that third round because I thought that Andrew Voorhees would fall to us in the fourth round. And I think that that's the guy who you could kind of take a redshirt year on and you could really wait for him to come in because I don't think the Cowboys are necessarily pressed to get a guard this year. I think it's a future concern and it's something that we do need to address. But I don't necessarily know if it's something that has to happen this year. I mean, we have a really good five if we put our best five out there. So in my ideal position, I would have liked to, if we saw Andrew Voorhees fall to like 126, 127, maybe give up like, like a like a really late pick and maybe move up a couple spots and get him. But right now, I don't love any of the guards at this moment on the board to get at 129. I would probably look at other positions. I'm not sure what's available on the board right now because like we're just looking at the guards, but I'd ideally look somewhere else when it came to just best player available right now.
So, Brandon, we have our guy. We have Sean Tucker, the running back out of Syracuse. He is available. I do like in the fourth round, if you do get an offensive lineman or running back, you do have Juice Scruggs that is there. Maybe Mafi falls to the fifth round as somebody that we can grab there. But what do you think? Give me sort of like a mini scouting report on Sean Tucker and what he would bring to the Cowboys offense.
I'll give you one name in the NFL today. Austin Eckler.
Wow.
Yeah, that's him. He's got track speed. Yeah, he unfortunately, obviously, the whole combine situation. He posted his own personal video. I've watched him live at the Carrier Dome, for the last couple of years. He's legit track star speed. He's got legit 4.3 speed. He's very good. He can you just put the ball in his hands. He's magic. He's the one thing that I would say about Sean Tucker that I do get worried about, especially in the NFL level, is he's not the greatest pass protector. So that's my pet peeve with running backs. But in the fourth round, the other part of the talent is there. He could be even he could be our second or third string running back. I wouldn't have a problem with it behind Tony Pollard. I just think he needs to be more refined in pass pro. That's been kind of an issue with him. He is a strong guy. He just a lot of times I feel like his technique kind of gets in the way sometimes, which you can correct that. So I think from that perspective, I would love him here, but I can't be taking too many Syracuse guys. I don't want people thinking I'm too biased around here. So I mean, and here's the thing: if Garrett Williams, if we didn't take Garrett Williams, in the third round, I'd take Sean Tucker right now in the fourth round and not sweat it. But just so we're not stacking too many of my Syracuse guys, I would like to see what we have at linebacker right now. I'm just curious to see what's on the board. I just want to see here.
I was going to say, the Reaper brought up a good point. He said Ivan Pace Jr., and he is available. He's the number one linebacker that is available right now for the Cowboys to pick at 129. PFF has him at 118 as their ranked player.
Yeah.
Troy Brown out of Ole Miss, Ventrell Miller out of Florida, Cam Jones. Man, he really is the last really good linebacker. I know they met with a few other guys, Trenton Simpson, who's way gone right now. Howman, do you think Ivan Pace is somebody that we can't pass up on right now? Because the Cowboys linebacker depth is outside of Leighton Vander Esch, and we know his injury history, we know that he struggled to stay healthy on the field. And outside of that, Jabril Cox is an unknown. Damone Clark as well, not really sure of. I don't know. Linebacker seems, and I know he's smaller. I know he's a smaller guy. There are some things that you can kind of knock him for, but it seems like that's sort of a blinking light, at least in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I love Ivan Pace Jr. He was a tremendous pass rusher as a blitzing linebacker in college. Then he went to the Senior Bowl and looked like he was a converted safety with his coverage skills. So he really is somebody that I think could thrive in Dan Quinn's defense just because of his overall versatility. I do kind of question how much the Cowboys really need linebackers, given how much they use their safeties, mainly Curse and Wilson, in kind of an extra linebacker role. So I think they're probably in a situation where they don't necessarily need to take another linebacker. They're probably going to be good there long term. Anthony Barr could always come back as well. But again, Ivan Pace Jr. is one of those players that you see what he's capable of, you see what he can do, and you get really excited thinking about what Dan Quinn would do with him. So I'd be hard pressed to not take him at this point.
Good value.
Chris, what do you think?
I really like Ivan Pace, but I'm just curious, and I'm not saying I'm going this route, but can we just look and see what quarterbacks are available right now? I'm not saying I'm not going the route. I'm just curious who's available right now. I just want to see on the board who made it to round 4, if anyone, maybe Hendon Hooker, maybe someone like. I'm just curious.
Nobody of note.
Okay, nobody of note then.
Yeah.
Well, then at that rate, then I'll go with Ivan Pace Jr.
So we have Brian asking, before we move past this round, could we get a recap of the draft for those who joined late? Pretty please. I like that. So, and even Watsamata as well said a recap of where we're at and kind of reminding positions of need. It's a good point. So far we have Zay Flowers, we have Sika Aika, Garrett Williams, and I believe I forgot to write down the last one. Is this the next pick, or is that all we have right now?
Yeah, we got three picks then. We made
3 picks. Yeah, so that's all we have right now. So I think I like where you guys are talking about with linebacker. I think Ivan Pace is a pet cat of mine. The one thing I liked about him at the combine of what he mentioned is that he is he has a background in wrestling and that he likes to wrestle. He loves contact. And I think the one thing that sold me on him was when he was at the Senior Bowl. I saw the highlights of him blitzing, and he was going right past all the running backs. It's just like he was playing on another level. And I think, like you mentioned, Howman, what Dan Quinn can do in his defense with a guy like Ivan Pace, especially with Micah Parsons kind of just being a freelance pass rusher at that point, where he doesn't have to be pigeonholed into being a linebacker. He can just kind of be like a free-range chicken out there, if you will. So I think Ivan Pace provides a lot of depth for this team that desperately needs it. So I think that's a quality pick right there. So he will be our next pick. All right.
Good value.
Let's see. We have a few other guys. Marte Mapu, he's somebody that the Cowboys have met with. Okay, let's take a look at running backs. Somebody mentioned that earlier, and we can take a look at maybe running backs, maybe tight ends. We'll take a look at that as well. So you have Keaton Mitchell, the running back out of East Carolina. Eric Gray, another guy who I kind of watched very early on in the draft process. I like him a lot. Mo Ibrahim, of course, is still there. He torched my Rutgers Scarlet Knights for over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that hurts, but he would be a good Cowboy. Outside of those two, Travis Dye is another name, but nothing really kind of piques my interest.
I think guard.
Howman. Guard?
Yeah, I think guard.
Yeah, I'm going to look at guard. Cross my fingers
so
and Mafi's there.
Hey, he's still there. He is still there. Again, Howman, for people who didn't pay attention to Sunday's mock draft that we did, just give a brief overview of what Mafi brings as an offensive lineman.
Yeah, so Mafi, he has a very similar profile to Tyler Smith when he was coming out. He's just a big dude. He's not quite as athletic as Tyler Smith, although that's one of the things that made Tyler so rare coming out. But Mafi's a big presence. He's super physical. He loves playing in the trenches, and he's a really, really great run blocker. The biggest holdup with him is just that he is not much of a pass protector at this point. He originally started out as a defensive tackle at UCLA, playing next to Osa Odighizuwa until they moved him to offensive line. So he's definitely sort of a developmental guy. He probably isn't going to come in and start right away, but he's definitely someone with a very high ceiling, especially when you're talking about pairing him next to Tyler Smith in the long run.
Chris, for the Cowboys, they've recently talked about, and we'll kind of reset things with this discussion a little bit. They recently talked about Terrence Steele moving to left guard. Me personally, I think it's just more of a tactic of maybe they're trying to not tip their hand of where they might want to go in the first round, basically not have people trade up above them if they do like a Steve Avila or Osiris Torrance. Do you think that the best spot for the Cowboys to go with that left guard is a Terrence Steele or somebody like a Mafi who they can get late in the draft?
Yeah, I would go Mafi here. Imagine running the football behind Tyler Smith and Mafi. I mean, those are just two bulldozers running down the field with their athleticism and their strength. And then you're not looking too shabby on that right side either if you put Terrence Steele where he should be, and that's the right tackle position. So I'm going Mafi here. I don't like the idea of Terrence Steele at left guard. I think that's just a ploy. I think that's a smoke screen. I think that's just them trying to throw people off their tail and wanting a left guard at some point, maybe trying to see if one falls to them in the second. So I'm going Mafi here.
Brandon, what about you? Same question. Do you think Terrence Steele is the Cowboys left guard for next season, or do you think that it's just smoke and that they're going to take somebody either high in the draft or late to kind of fill that position? Or if you think Adoga is the answer, or Josh Ball, I know Bobby mentioned, he said, can we just move Ball to guard? And I think they might. I think they need to find a spot for him. It might not be at right tackle, but they need to find him somewhere, someplace to stay on this team. So what do you think?
Well, first off, Josh Ball can move to street. That's where I'm at with Josh Ball. So sorry, no offense. Some people would want to see him at guard. I'm done with him. I've kind of washed my hands with him. I think Mafi is a great pick here. I think the smoke screen with Terrence Steele. I can't see that happening. He's a natural right tackle. There's no sense in trying to move him inside. He's just really good at that position. And I'm telling you, I think is Mafi Samoan? I think he is. I believe he is. He's a big dude. I've watched him play in the Pac-12. He is just, he's a mauler. I think this is a heck of a value. What is he, 350 pounds, give or take? He's a monster. Bring him in. You know what? At this point in the draft, with our fifth pick, I am all ears. I'm ecstatic at this point. You got a guy that could be our potential starter pretty quickly for the Cowboys, and you're getting him this late. Send a card in.
This is why I trust you being my scouts. You guys bring a lot of wisdom, a lot of character, a lot of insight, and especially everybody out there in the audience. It seems like that pairing him next to, let's say, Tyler Smith is your left tackle. I really do think that you have two stout tree trunks on that left side, sort of the California redwoods. Maybe if one of them are from California, we could do that, especially with being at UCLA.
I think Mafi is from California.
Yeah, so we'll see where we go. Stetson Bennett just went the pick before. Brenton Strange, the tight end out of Penn State, went to New York. I'm telling you guys, I feel like that what happened in 2021 when the Cowboys traded with the Eagles so that they could jump the Giants to get Devonta Smith. This seems like that this has been brewing where the Giants are going to be a pain in the side for the Cowboys in this draft, especially picking before them in every round. So it seems like that if we wanted to go tight end, that's somebody that the Cowboys have taken a look at as well. Fehoko, the edge out of San Jose State, he went to Miami at 197. Will Mallory, the tight end, went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So let's see.
Where's Payne Durham? Is he on the board still?
Well, I was just going to say, let's see what we got at tight end here. We have Cameron Latu, somebody that the Cowboys met with recently, of Marshall Ford, Braden Willis. This is slim pickings right here.
I do like Latu. I think he has a touchdown record at Alabama. He's got some potential there, and he also played a little bit of edge too. So if you're going to go tight end here, from the names I can see here, Latu's probably not a bad pick here, especially at this latter part of the draft.
I know Brian mentioned Corey Trice is available as well. I don't know if the Cowboys have met with him. I know it's somebody that John Owning has talked about, and it seems like it's gotten a lot of buzz, especially on DallasCowboys.com draft show, being a third-round quality corner. Me personally, I don't think he will last that long, especially if a lot of professionals are talking about him that way. But let's see. I want to see who we have at kicker. And I say that because right now the Cowboys have absolutely nobody at kicker. And I think that this would be a quality spot to see what they have Jake Moody, probably the best kicker in the
Whoa.
draft.
Are we disrespecting Tristan Vizcaino like that?
Andre
hey.
Schmidt, man, what's going on? Another Syracuse guy.
Yeah, all these Syracuse guys
Man.
are just kind of falling in the Cowboys' favor. Chris, are you feeling kicker right now? Because again, the Cowboys really don't have anybody right now, and we're getting a lot of people in the comments, our other fellow scouts, saying that Moody would be a quality player, and he did kick in the Big Ten, a quality conference. Not to mention, the one thing that I always look at is the elements. You know, when you're kicking at Michigan, it's outdoors. You're kicking a lot of outdoor games. He's had big kicks, especially in championships too. So he's a proven kicker. And I think that's somebody where we talked about on our Writer's Block podcast yesterday, how if you had to do things over again in prior drafts for the Dallas Cowboys, Evan McPherson is a guy that you could have taken instead of somebody in the 5th or in the 4th round, like a Josh Ball. And that would be sort of a kicker that you can have and build around for the next 10 years. So what do you think about kicker here, or you want to go in a different direction?
I'm okay with kicker here, but I think the Cowboys should just bring back one of their most consistent players from last season and bring back Brett Maher. I mean, you know, I know that they seem to have kicked the tire on that and they don't care about it, but he was one of the most consistent kickers in the NFL last season. He had a bad game in the playoffs and, you know, it ended on a sour note, but I mean, he was responsible for us winning games most of the season. So I would rather just bring him back. But if you are going kicker here, I do think Moody's a great choice. I do like your point about the elements playing in factor. I mean, Michigan is not an easy place to play. That weather is not great for a kicker. And for him to be as successful as he was there, I think that would be a good fit as well. I mean, I also really do like the idea of Trice here too. I think that's great value, but like you wonder how realistic it is, and you know, if we're going off realism here, or if we're going off of what we should do just on the board. So yeah, I'm not fully for rushing to get a tight end at this point either, because let Jake Ferguson rock. He's that guy. I mean, listen, I think we're trying to find every excuse to find our next Kelsey in the first round. Kelsey himself, you know, he told the media, I really like that kid, Jake Ferguson in Dallas. Maybe you listen to, you know, Travis Kelsey, give him a shot. You have Hendershot as well. Like, I don't think we should rush to pick a tight end in this draft. I really think Jake Ferguson can be really, really, really good in this offense.
Now, somebody, I believe it was Kevin, he brought up in the chat, what are the trade offers that are available? And we do have one where the Washington Commanders want to come up, and they are 1, 2, 3 picks away from where we're at right now. So if we do want to go either a kicker or in another direction, it's not dropping too far. And if you can always take picks away from the Commanders, that's always a good thing. And you figure this late in the draft, the value of whatever player they're going to take might not hurt you in the long run in the division. Howman, what do you think about a trade right now?
I mean, I would definitely be open to it, especially because it's only a couple spots back. I'm also curious, though, because last round we talked about Mo Ibrahim out of Minnesota. I'm curious if he's still there, because if not, I think that would be a potential target here, too.
So he is still available at valued at 229. Me personally, let's take the chance, see if we can get an extra pick from the Commanders and see if he's available at 215. Maybe we can actually get our kicker a little further down the line from there. How do you guys feel about that?
I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, so let's see. So we want their 215. We could take their 233, see if that's what they kind of want. See if that'll make the trade work. I don't know. They're being picky here. You know, it's if you want to come up, you have to take the trade. So let's see what they do. No, they don't want it. All right. Well, we're going to take a player, and I don't know who they want. They might want a Corey Trice. Safety is another position where the Cowboys might need just a little bit more depth, but nothing really kind of standing out here. So how do you guys feel about Mo Ibrahim right here? The running back the Cowboys talked about.
I'll take it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take Mo any day of the week here. I've watched him enough in the Big Ten. He's a heck of a player. The issue with him, that's why he's fallen this far, is he's had a lot of carries. He's had some injuries. I think he's 25 or going to be 25, so he's a little bit of an older prospect. But you know what? This late in the draft, he's probably that last running back that I could see being drafted where he could play some valuable snaps for the Cowboys this year. He's got enough talent. I say roll the dice on him, and worst case scenario, he's a second or third option behind Tony Pollard this year. I'm okay with it.
Kevin, to answer your question, the Colts are the other team that are looking to come up and trade. They have pick 221 in the 7th round. Me personally, I think as the GM, I'm going to make a super, decision here and say that that's too far of a drop off. I think if you kind of go that far, you might be missing out on a good player. Howman, are you going for Mo Ibrahim? You think he's a quality player? And the Cowboys did mention that they wanted a bigger back to go along and be a complement to Tony Pollard. And I think at this stage, he has dealt with injuries in the past. He is a little bit older, but he's proven to be a very good runner at Minnesota. And then also you can have him for 4 years and then move on. You don't have to offer him a second contract after that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think Mo really fits what the Cowboys seem to be looking for as a complement for Tony Pollard at this point. He kind of is a similar play style to Ezekiel Elliott, where he's a between the tackles guy. He's going to go and get the dirty yards for you. And, we talk about the injuries. Part of that was because he was the guy on offense at Iowa State or at Minnesota. And he was carrying so many times, and Dallas, he would not be in that situation. He would be a complimentary back. He would be a short yardage guy. Tony Pollard is going to be the one that's taking most of the carries. So I think it's a really good fit.
Brandon, you had a point to make?
Yeah, how often can you get a guy this late in the draft who's coming off 20 touchdowns in the Big Ten, averaging over 5 yards a carry? Send the ticket in. Let's go.
All right, let's do it. We're making him the replacement for Ezekiel Elliott, who is still training. I saw pictures today of him training at EXO. So who knows? Maybe Elliott comes back. Maybe he plays a little bit more of a fullback role. But he will be the next pick for the Cowboys. Chris, we have one more pick remaining here. We could look at quarterback. Maybe a Max Duggan is available for development. I think when you're in this late, nobody wants to trade right now. It's really just finding traits. I mean, we know what happened with Rico Gathers years and years and years ago, where the Cowboys took a flyer on a guy who hopefully would translate to the tight end position outside of the preseason. And maybe, I think, against the Houston Texans, he had 1 touchdown, I believe. Just was not good. But again, at this stage of the game, you're just looking to hopefully find a diamond in the rough. The deep rough.
Yeah, I would go Max Duggan here. I was okay with it. If if those players weren't on the board, I'd be okay with a 6th round grade on him too. I mean, maybe it doesn't work out, maybe it does, but I mean, it's kind of a low risk situation. You're picking in the 7th round. It's a QB who you can say Mike McCarthy drafted and who can develop under him. And, he has that experience of winning in college. I mean, he really put them on their back in the playoffs. And I just think it would be like kind of a cool, let's see what happens kind of thing. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't work out, then, it was just a 7th round pick. So I'm not against getting Max Duggan in this situation.
Howman, and for everybody of our other scouts in the audience, I will recap who we have taken right now. We had Zay Flowers as the first pick, wide receiver out of Boston College. Sika Ika. I'm gonna call him a sick defensive tackle out of Baylor. We have Garrett Williams, the cornerback from Syracuse. Ivan Pace, the linebacker out of Cincinnati, who I think everybody here, as well as the scouts at home, felt like that was great value for where we got him. Tonio Mafi, the left guard, who brings a lot of power, a lot of strength to solidify the offensive line, and Mo Ibrahim, the running back out of Minnesota. Howman, when you look at the Cowboys' needs and where they need to address to kind of take that next step, hopefully get over the hump to the NFC Championship game, I know that they do need a kicker, and whether they address that in undrafted free agency or maybe they bring in a vet like a Mason Crosby, Robbie Gould out of San Francisco, is there any position of need that maybe you want to double up on where there might be some value here? I'm kind of taking a look here. Nothing really kind of screaming out right now. I'm trying to think. I know MJ Anderson is somebody that they met with as well at Iowa State when Dan Quinn was there, and Will McClay as an edge rusher. Anybody that kind of sticks out, maybe you want to double up on there, Howman?
I think I'd be interested in seeing who all's there at linebacker, especially because at this point you're kind of thinking about who's going to help out on special teams. A lot of linebackers generally tend to help out there.
Yeah, Drake Thomas, linebacker at North Carolina State. Mikel Jones, your guy, Syracuse guys just keep wanting to be taken here. Let's see, Isaiah Moore, Jeremy Banks. Let's see, Bakersville. out of LSU. I want to see, and I know it's because we haven't addressed it, just because they might need a little bit more help there. I just wanted to see what they have at tight end. Braden Willis is still there out of Oklahoma. He might be more of an undrafted free agent. I know they did meet with him as well. Let's see, maybe a offensive tackle to give a little bit more depth. Jordan McFadden is still there, the tackle out of Clemson. I know he has the T-Rex arms. And I know this wasn't my joke, but I will say it again. The T-Rex may have had shorter arms, but he was a mighty dinosaur. So you never know. You might get a dinosaur out of a Jordan McFadden, but you also have Jake Witt as well.
What about kicker? Is Moody still on the board?
That is a good point. Maybe we don't want to fight. Yeah, he's still there, and that might be somebody that we don't want to fight for in free agency. Yeah, Brian brings up Moody. You can get undrafted. I don't think Duggan goes undrafted. Let's see if Duggan is here, just for the sake of an argument. Let's see. We go. Yeah, I mean, he's still there. I think that right now it's a battle of where do you want to go with regards to players you want to fight for in undrafted free agency. So we do have Jake Moody and we do have Max Duggan. Those are two players that I do think that the Cowboys would be beneficial in drafting. Maybe Max Duggan develops into a backup who you could flip for a pick down the line. Moody, again, provides something at a position that you desperately need right now.
Great player. Jake Moody's a heck of a player. He's got a big leg. He had a 59-year career long. I think that's the longest in Michigan history. I mean, right here, this is a great spot to take a kicker. Right, he's the best kicker in the draft in this draft class. He's kicked in the elements. You know, obviously he's kicking. You know, in Dallas, if he kicked in Dallas, the elements would be a little bit nicer for him. I mean, Moody would be a heck of a pick here. He's, to me, I wouldn't even be mad if we took him in the 5th round. That's how high of a level kicker he is. I think he's going to be a good player.
I wanted to see somebody brought up a good point about maybe even replacing a wide receiver. You have Jake Bobo, who has one of the best names. This wide receiver class is an elite name class. I was taking a look at a few of the names, and I do like a lot of them. We'll avoid the South Alabama player simply because we already have one on the roster. You don't need to double down on that. Chris, what do you think, Moody? You feeling a little bit moody right now?
Moody's great, man, but I just think that hometown hero in Max Duggan, it makes sense. I don't know. Mike McCarthy wants to develop a quarterback. Give him a guy who he can develop, who he handpicks and he drafts. You know, I still don't think that we need to draft a kicker. Go get a veteran if we're trying to compete now. Get Robbie Gould out there in free agency, the guy who kills us every single time we play him in the postseason. So I would go on Duggan right here, and I would pass on Jake Moody.
Now, Watsamata brings up a point to kind of counteract what you're saying there, Chris, that they'll pass on him because they feel like they'll get maybe a hometown advantage. Of course, they did bring him in, or at least met with him at Dallas State, maybe not worked him out at that certain point, but they have shown interest in Max Duggan as a potential maybe heir apparent to a Cooper Rush when it's all said and done. Howman, Moody, Duggan, make the final decision, and of course I'll make the executive decision, but you make the final decision before I do.
You know, I'm really not a fan of drafting a kicker, whatever the kicker is. I mean, like Chris said, Robbie Gould is out there, Mason Crosby's out there, Brett Maher is out there. He just had a great year for you. I mean, you think, like, who is the best kicker in NFL history? It's Justin Tucker. He was not drafted. Like, I just think it's such a waste of resources to spend a draft pick on a kicker, because you can find good kickers, you know, whether they're veterans, whether they're undrafted rookies. And then you look at the year that Max Duggan had. I mean, he started out as a backup. He ended up, you know, coming into the spotlight. He led a team, a very unlikely team in TCU, to the national championship game. And then he had to face Georgia. And just like every other team that's ever played Georgia, it did not go well for you. But I think Max Duggan has all of the intangibles, has all the traits to be a really good backup, be a really good developmental player under Mike McCarthy. If we're picking between Moody and Max, I'm going with Mad Max all the time.
Brandon, you had one final point to make, one desperate grasp or gasp.
I mean, let's see who was undrafted that was a franchise quarterback for a long time in Dallas. Tony Romo. That's a name. I'm not saying he's going to be Tony Romo or anything, for Max Duggan. But I think Max Duggan is the kind of guy, like, I think he's going to be undrafted. I think we can take our chances with him and get him, and plus he's right in town. So we can, bring him in as an undrafted. He'd be high priority, bring him in. And the Cowboys still have Dak Prescott on the roster. And, I think, I don't think we need to go crazy about drafting a quarterback because we already have Dak Prescott. And I get that there's kickers out there. I wouldn't even put Mason Crosby up there because if you watched enough Packer games, which I have, Mason Crosby, I think he's had better days. Robbie Gould, I would like to see him, but I just don't know if the Cowboys would spend that kind of resources that it's going to take to get a Robbie Gould. And I think shoring up the kicker position, I think even in the round 7 draft assets, it's not really that big of an asset for me for a guy that fills a need. We need a starting kicker, and I don't think we necessarily need to go quarterback here, but that's just my take.
Brandon, we share namesake. You were the first one to sign up for the roundtable tonight. I have to say, there is no higher priority free agent than taking the player right here, right now. We're going to take Max Duggan here. Solidify, the competition between him and Will Grier could develop possibly into the backup for the Cowboys. You never know. Like I said, I think when you look at how the Philadelphia Eagles, I look at them as just something to take a look at, not a team to like, not a team to cheer for, but just something to plan for, and how they plan to take Jalen Hurts and develop him. And like Howie Roseman said, he wants to develop a quarterback factory. If you can turn Duggan into somebody, even if you get a 4th round pick down the line, he's already increased his value where you can kind of get something for him in the future. So I do think that for that point alone, Mike McCarthy likes to develop quarterbacks. I think he showed a lot of moxie this season, especially like what Howman said. He didn't start out as the starter. He came in as the backup and then led this team onto a Cinderella run that got them all the way to the national championship. So for that, personally, I like him there. When we scroll down, wow, I thought that, you know what? Me personally, I like what we did here. I thought the grade was going to be a lot worse. I'll have you know, I had no faith in what we were doing. But, I look at this and how they graded out at a B grade. I think I like to think we had an A grade. But Chris, I'll start off with you. What's one player that you're most excited about if they join the Cowboys from the draft that we just had?
I'd be so excited for Zay Flowers. And I know some people have been commenting it's wide receiver 4 on our roster. Michael Gallup needs to step up next season, or Zay Flowers is taking that role. It's just that simple. I think Michael Gallup, I think he deserves a little bit of, an excuse with, rehabbing his injury, but it's now or never. Like, it's put up or shut up. And Zay Flowers reminds me a lot of Steve Smith, really. He's so good once he catches that football. He just brings a tenacity. He brings just a beast mode at the wide receiver position. I really think it's between him and JSN as wide receiver 1 in this whole draft. I'm big on Zay Flowers, so I love that pick. But I really do like that 3rd and 4th round selection as well, Garrett Williams and Ivan Pace Jr. I think those are 2 guys who could really be, some diamonds in the roughs and could really impact your defense. So yeah, no, I'm giving this a higher overall grade. Actually, I'm giving it like an A- or a B+. I think we killed this draft.
Howman, we have 3 of the biggest human beings in the NFL right now. You have Ika, you have Mafi, and you also have Quinton Bohanna, who's still on the team as well. These guys are just stout defensive linemen, and you look at how the Cowboys wanted to be better at stopping the run. You throw Ika in there next to a Jonathan Hankins or an Osa Odigizua, you have 2 of the biggest people in the NFL playing that defensive tackle position, something that the Cowboys haven't had in a very long time. And I think Ika is a very solid pick, especially at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have the beef in the trenches, and that's 2 straight years with the 49ers, a team that's always been really, really great in the trenches, and they've beaten you in the playoffs. So, you want to get tougher, you want to get more physical. Having size helps with that, and not only just on the defensive trenches. You get a guy like Mafi and you put him next to Tyler Smith, like we've talked about. Now you've got 2 monsters on the offensive line as well. And if you're looking at those 2 guys, your left tackle and your left guard, every time you hand it off, just run to the left. You're going to be in good shape.
Now, Brandon, another thing that I forgot to mention with Mo Ibrahim, he was, of course, at the East-West Shrine game. I don't believe he played in the game, if at all, a little bit, because I know he was still probably recovering from some things during the season, but he got Practice Player of the Week, and I do think that that speaks to his character. I hear a lot of things out of Minnesota. Again, talking to a lot of beat reporters there that cover the team, they said that he really is a gold standard for them, true leader in and out of the locker room. And when you lose a guy like Ezekiel Elliott that the Cowboys decided to let go this offseason, you want a little bit more leadership. And if you can have someone like Ibrahim come in, do his job, but also do it well and kind of help lead not only the rookie class, but also maybe a little bit more of the offense, I think that kind of sinks in with what the Cowboys are looking for, especially with a quarterback like a Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I mean, Mo Ibrahim, he's a talented player. I mean, I watched him torch my Syracuse Orange in the bowl game. So I've been watching him for a few years. He's a really good player, and I know he had the injury. I think it was a year or two ago. I think it was the Achilles tear. That was honestly he without the injury, I feel like he might not even be in this draft class. He could have gone last year. He's a talented guy. I don't care that he's a little bit older. I think there's a lot to like about him. He checks all the boxes. He was by far Minnesota's best player. I mean, they force-fed him every chance they could get. He was the most dynamic player on that team, and he's just an uber talented guy. And by the way, just to go back to that draft board, I'm very excited for Max Duggan. I mean, I didn't express that, but I'm so excited for Max Duggan. Not really. I'm just kidding. I do like Max. I just, if I had to pick, this is kind of like my favorite draft right now. I got a Baylor guy, I got a Syracuse guy, a couple of my guys in there, and obviously Mo's in there as well. If I had to pick one right out the gate, I gotta go with my Baylor boy, Ika. He's just, I think he's not gonna fill the stat sheet, but he's gonna make an impact. He's gonna make it easier for those pass rushers to go eat and just get the quarterback all the time. He's going to be stout on the run. I watched him enough at Baylor. He comes from LSU. He's got a lot of talent. So he's been coached up very well. I don't think there's too many flaws to his game. I just think, he's not going to flash like a Micah Parsons, but his impact on the field, because of how our defense was last year, with the lack of that punch with the run, especially in the interior of the defensive line at run defense, I think that's the guy that's going to make, I think that's going to be a pick that, if it happens, Cowboys fans may not like it when it happens, but they're going to like it at the end of 2023 because he's going to be a guy that he can be around for the Cowboys and be a stud for a long time. I would love to see him turn into old school, like Ted Washington type, just being right in the middle, just hogging up that line. I'm good with that. Let's go with it.
Before we announce tonight's winner, I'd be remiss because we talked about him so much, not only last season, but into the offseason. Odell Beckham signs or agrees to terms with the Baltimore Ravens. And I say agrees because it's never over until I actually see signing on the dotted line. I need to see him signing that contract. I need that picture to feel safe with no longer talking about it. But Chris, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on Odell Beckham finally being over, the conversation is over, and now the Cowboys can kind of move past that to addressing the draft full-heartedly, and we don't have to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time, I was pretty public about this. There was a time last season where I liked the idea of Odell being a Cowboy, but props to Jerry Jones, props to the Jones family, because they got, in my opinion, a much better receiver in Brandon Cooks for a lot cheaper this upcoming season. I mean, you're comparing Odell's contract is anywhere between 15 to 18 million this upcoming season, and Brandon Cook's current cap hit for 2023, according to Spotrac.com, is 6 million. So that's just the Cowboys doing what they do best, and that's finding good value and, finding those players who they're able to get for what they consider a good deal. So at the end of the day, I'm glad that the Cowboys went with Brandon Cooks. I think he's more reliable to be on the field, and I think he's more reliable to produce in a more consistent way throughout the season and not bring any locker room headaches that maybe Odell kind of has, with him, like he kind of has that stereotype about him. So so overall, I'm happy it's done. I'm happy we don't have to talk about it anymore. I'm happy that we don't have to, dissect him sitting front row at a Mavs game, and we don't have to dissect him doing all these different things, like what kind of food he's eating. Does that mean he's going to Dallas? I'm happy to put it behind us, and hopefully we can look ahead towards the draft.
Now, Howman, I mean, he brought up a great point of, and it seems like everybody with every contract this offseason, it's always used with the phrase up to, up to a certain amount. And for Odell Beckham, it's up to 18 million, but with incentives and everything, it might be a little bit lower than that just on the base salary. I think the Cowboys, they did the right thing. They were never going to pay that type of money to get somebody like a Beckham coming off of 2 ACL injuries and, not really being able to prove within the past year what his worth would be. And I think that with the Cowboys, they got the better player in a Brandon Cooks. You still need to see what you have in a Jalen Tolbert because it's a draft pick that you invested heavily. And if you take somebody like a Zay Flowers in the first round, I feel better, honestly, about Zay Flowers at 26 than I would bringing in somebody like an Odell Beckham.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's with OBJ, it was always he's the big name, but if you actually sat down and looked at what he's done recently, that's why myself and a few others were kind of on the no BJ train, especially when you're bringing in a guy like Brandon Cooks. And I mean, he's cheaper. He's actually played in the last year. Last year when, the Cowboys were trying to sign OBJ and he's out there publicly saying, I don't see the point of playing in the regular season. At the same time, Cooks was upset and requesting a trade because the Texans wouldn't play him. They were benching him. So just completely different in terms of a player's approach, their durability, their actual production. I think the Cowboys got a great deal here. And then to your point, they've still got Jalen Tolbert, who kind of was not put in the best situation as a rookie. I think he could potentially still become something. And then at the same time, you have an opportunity to go and get a guy like Zay Flowers or some other receiver in this draft. So I think they're set up very well there.
Well, I'd like to announce tonight's winner. Of course, everybody's a winner. This was a group effort. It was something that we had a lot of fun with. But I'd like to say it wasn't rigged from the start, but I have to name Chris our roundtable winner simply because he stuck to his guns when everybody wanted to zig. He zagged and he wanted to trade up. He wanted to get Bijan Robinson. It didn't fall in his favor, but like a good scout, he kept a smile on and was drafting with anticipation, with heart and passion. Chris, you are tonight's roundtable winner. What do you have to say to the people out there and give sort of your stoop speech?
Well, listen, I never said it was Bijan who I was looking for. I just said it was Texas. It could have been Roshan. Nah. No, I'm kidding. I wanted Bijan, but it's okay. I think we did a great job as a whole. I think we all put in our 2 cents, and I think at the end of the day, I'm glad to say that I'm the winner. That's cool, but we all contributed to this great draft, and if this is how it goes, and we win the Super Bowl in 2023 because of it, then I think that we deserve our flowers from the front office. So I think that we deserve our own Super Bowl rings because I think that these were great picks, and I appreciate being on here. I love I'm talking football with all you guys. And, I'm just happy to be here. So I appreciate it, though. Thank you.
Well, and Howman, you said your piece on Sunday when we talked. So I'll give the final word to Brandon C., who was the first one, kind of looping it all the way back around to sign up earlier in the week. So, Brandon, I want you to close out right now. Pick number 26 for the Dallas Cowboys. Who are they taking?
Not a tight end.
I like it.